All right, class. In this lesson, we're going to talk about stock transactions. Specifically, we're going to define some basic vocabulary of buying and selling shares of stock. And then we're going to look at a few examples on how to compute gains and losses from stock trades. Now, before we begin, we need to understand what is a stock portfolio. And essentially, a stock portfolio is the set of all the stocks a person or a group currently owns. And the portfolio changes whenever stocks are bought or sold. Stocks are best, usually, investors will tell you that stocks are best for long-term goals, because if you look at stock prices over a shorter period of time, you're going to experience fluctuations. Now, there are investors that are more aware of what's going on in the stock market, and they do play the short game, and they try to take advantage of fluctuations in stock price. But for the average investor like you and me, the best thing is to hold the stock over a longer period of time, because stocks tend to grow and become more valuable over that period of time. When a stock is bought and sold, a trade is made with another stockholder. Most shareholders will buy and sell stocks in multiples of 100, and these are called round lots. And when they are not sold in multiples of 100, they're called odd lots. Now, let me go back to market volatility for a second. Because stocks are considered fairly volatile, depending on what kind of stocks you're talking about. Some could be more volatile than others. People typically own a portfolio that has a diversified set of stocks, so that the variation can be minimized or normalized. Now, the difference between the selling price and the purchase price is called the gross capital gain. Okay, so obviously, if you sell it for higher than the purchase price, then there is a capital gain. If you sell a stock for less than what you paid for, then that would be called a gross capital loss. In either case, you must report those gains and losses to the IRS each year, because each affects the amount of income taxes that you are responsible for. All right, so that's some background information. Let's go ahead and take a look at example number 1. This is fairly simple and straightforward. So several years ago, Marlene purchased stock for $7,241 in total. And last week, she sold the stock for $9,219. And the question here is, what was her gross capital gain? All right, so what we're going to do is take the amount that she sold it for, that's $9,219, and we're going to subtract the amount that she paid for, $7,241, and this works out to $1,978. So this is her gross capital gain. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. Fairly straightforward. Profit, or how much she paid for at the end minus, how much she sold it for at the end minus what she paid for it. Okay, now in example number 2, we have 5 years ago, Jessica bought 300 shares of a cosmetic company stock for $34.87 per share. And yesterday she sold all of her shares for $41 per share. So what was her capital gain? All right, so what we're going to do is take $41, and we're going to multiply that by 300. Okay, and the reason we want to do this is we want to know how much she sold the shares for in total. And when you calculate this, it works out to $12,300. All right, and the next thing we're going to calculate is how much she purchased, or how much she spent purchasing 300 shares 5 years ago. So that's going to be $34.87, and that's 300 shares. And punching that number into the calculator works out to $10,461. Okay, so to determine her capital gain, we now go back to what we did in example 1, how much she sold it for, subtracting how much she purchased it for, and that works out to $1,839. So this is her capital gain. Okay, and let's go ahead and move on to example 3. We have Randy paid $3,450 for shares of corporation that manufactured cell phones. He sold it for $6,100, and we need to express his capital gain as a percent of the original price, purchase price, and round to the nearest 1/10 of a percent. Okay, so first we need to determine the capital gain. So that's $6,100 minus $3,450. Okay, and this works out to $2,550. All right, so that's his capital gain. And now we're going to take $2,550 and express that as a percent of the original purchase price. The original purchase price that he paid for was $3,450. And punching that into the calculator, we see that comes out to 0.739. Okay, now we have to express this in percent, so we have to multiply this by 100, and that works out to 73.9%. Okay, let me go ahead and clarify that. 73.9%, and that's rounded to the nearest 1/10 of a percent, because the decimal after the 9 is actually a 1, so we keep it at 73.9. Okay, hopefully that made sense to you. If any of this was unclear, please go back to the beginning of the recording and listen to it again. Thank you.